Audiences now have 6 seasons of the hit series Outlander to enjoy and binge. A 7th season is officially on the way, and fans are dying to see what's next for Claire and Jamie. For those of you who don't know, Outlander tells the story of an English combat nurse from 1945 who is mysteriously swept back in time to 1743. So stay tuned and don't go away, because we're going to take a look at the Outlander cast's most controversial moments. First up, are Outlander's rape scenes far more graphic than Game of Thrones? Let's take a look. Back in 2015, Outlander revealed one of the most graphic and disturbing rape scenes ever to air on television. The scene featured both physical and psychological torture. The controversial scene we're referring to was male rape, and it wasn't only one scene, but multiple scenes over 2 episodes. Oftentimes, scenes like those are considered hard to watch, but for many observers, hard to watch doesn't even begin to describe it. Around this time, there was also a great deal of controversy surrounding Game of Thrones and a rape scene that upset viewers. Some viewers, including a United States senator, were so upset that they vowed to stop watching GOT altogether. Because of this, many people predicted that there would be some serious backlash against Outlander. The GOT rape scene only lasted less than 30 seconds, and it didn't even show that assault, but Outlander showed everything. Surprisingly though, Outlander didn't receive any backlash at all. There were some who felt the rape scenes were too much, but most fans praised the episode on social media for its brilliant writing and acting. At the time, Outlander's executive producer, Ronald D. Moore, was expecting some backlash, but was pleasantly surprised when it never came. Moore opened up about the viewing public's reaction to the scenes and said, "It's been overwhelmingly positive. Any fan response to something they love will always have outliers that hate it, who still watch it over and over. My favorite reviews are the ones that begin with, 'This is the 3rd time I've watched this episode, and it gets worse every time I see it.' I'm like, that's a fan. They express it in a different way, but they're still fans, but it is kind of surprising." Next up, so why the backlash against Game of Thrones and a free pass for Outlander? You're about to find out. There are valid reasons why Outlander's sexual assault was far better received than Game of Thrones. The most important reason is that, unlike Game of Thrones, the rape in Outlander was taken directly from the book series, written by author Diana Gabaldon, and Outlander's biggest fans, many of whom had already read the books, knew the rape scene was coming, how horrific it would be, and they were ready for it. As a result, it's believed that, at least for those fans, much of the scene in question's shock value had been diluted prior to it even airing. In fact, many fans of the Outlander books felt that the rape was far worse and more detailed in the books. Also, there was a big difference in terms of perspective between the Game of Thrones rape scene and the Outlander scene. The GOT rape was shown from the eyes of an onlooker named Heughan, which turned out to be a controversial move. The camera focused on Heughan while viewers listened to Sansa's screams. This was clearly an attempt by the writers and director not to show viewers too much and go too far, but to their surprise, it backfired. Apparently, people's imaginations turned out to be much worse than what was shown. By showing the rape from Heughan's perspective, Game of Thrones took away the victim's point of view, and for many fans, this felt like even more of a violation. Up next, who would have thought that a simple spanking could cause so much controversy? Let's have a look. The Outlander episode titled The Reckoning, including what is largely considered to be the most controversial scene from author Diana Gabaldon's books. After Jamie rescues his wife Claire from the clutches of the evil Black Jack Randall, he punishes her with a vicious spanking. The incident was particularly shocking for Claire, who is a time-traveling World War II combat nurse and isn't accustomed to the harsh traditions and norms in Scotland, circa 1743. The spanking scene is also one that has divided fans of the Outlander books for decades, and many were wondering whether or not the series would even show it. Moore explained the creative approach that he took in the Reckoning episode, which also happened to be the first episode narrated by Jamie instead of Claire. Moore said, "I needed to understand where Jamie was coming from. That's the big question in this scene. Why is he doing this? What does this mean? I needed to understand his point of view more than I needed to understand her point of view. We are Claire. We are modern people, so we get her perspective." So what was going on in Jamie's mind during the spanking scene? Believe it or not, the scene was not about anger or abuse. For Jamie, it was a scene about justice. Claire did something that endangered their lives. If Claire were a man, she probably would have been flogged or worse. But in 1743 Scotland, this is how women were punished. Stay tuned and don't go away, because we're looking at some of Outlander's most unforgettable moments. Next up, how did Faith's death shock fans? You're about to find out. Unlike many shows out there, Outlander's goal was never to give audiences happy endings. Why? Because life isn't fair. Sometimes it's sad, and sometimes it's downright ugly and brutal. Sometimes in life, there are no happy endings. And from the start, Outlander's goal has been to be as brutally honest and realistic as possible. And in 1743 Scotland, life was definitely brutal and harsh for the common folk. One of the most tragic deaths in the history of the show was that of Jamie and Claire's daughter, Faith, who didn't get a chance at life at all. She was stillborn, and Claire herself nearly died giving birth to her. The flashbacks we get from a mother holding her dead child are some of the most powerful and unforgettable, not just for Outlander, but for television in general. Jamie and Willie's goodbye was also gut-wrenching, particularly for Jamie. Jamie had been through so much, and it's hard to understand how he's still standing. After losing his daughter Faith and sending Claire through the stones when she's carrying Brianna, he's again forced to say goodbye to another child. When Willie starts to resemble Jamie, Jamie knows that it's time to say goodbye, and he sends Willie to stay with Lord John Grey and Isabel. Jamie knows that Willie will be loved and is only thinking about his son's future. But this unforgettable moment was absolutely heart-wrenching for fans to have to witness. Up next, which other Outlander show shocked fans? Let's take a look. Every good story since the dawn of time is nothing without a good villain, and the first villain in Outlander was Leary. Fans were shocked when they found out Jamie married her. Of all the women he could go for, he chooses the one who tries to get Claire burned at the stake. Yes, we know it's a little more complicated than that, but things really did take a turn for the worst when Leary shoots Jamie. Thankfully, Claire is around to patch him, but this moment is still one that sticks out in the minds of fans. And who could forget the battle-joined executions? During the season premiere of Season 3, when fans were just getting used to seeing Claire and Jamie going through life, Jamie becomes embroiled in a fierce and brutal battle. By some miracle, Jamie survives, but barely. The battle was awful and bloody, and he survived by playing dead. After the battle, the Culloden who survived were lined up and slaughtered. Jamie was powerless to do anything to stop the executions, and he had to lay there as his comrades were slaughtered within earshot. As fans were watching the scene, they couldn't help but feel overcome by a deep sense of dread and helplessness. Finally, here's another controversial moment in Outlander. Jamie's assault and torture are something that Outlander fans won't soon forget. It's seared into their minds like grill marks on a steak. The first time Outlander depicted assault and torture on TV was during the first season of the show, and unfortunately, the victim was none other than Jamie himself. Without any doubt, these scenes will go down as some of the most difficult scenes to watch, and not just in Outlander, but in film or television in general. The sheer brutality and sadistic nature of the assault at the hands of Jack Randall are shown without mercy and leave viewers to feel every second of it from Jamie's point of view. To say the scenes were tough to watch would be an understatement. The scenes in the show were pretty close to what happens in the books, and the audiences get everything shown firsthand. Nothing at all is left to the imagination, and this makes the scenes all the more emotionally violent and scarring. The scenes of Jamie's torture are vivid and will go down as one of the most talked about moments in the annals of Outlander history. That's a wrap for today's video. Thank you for watching.